Hello and welcome. My name's Henrietta Brealey. I'm the Chief Executive of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and I'm joined today by Nicola Turner, MBE, Director of Legacy at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. And we're going to be talking all things Games legacy and how the local business community can get involved. So, Nicola, welcome. I wondered if you could start by telling us a little bit about you, your background and your role with the Games.
Yeah, sure. Well, my job is Director of Legacy, and in a nutshell, I suppose that's to try and make this Games for everyone a reality for the people of Birmingham and the West Midlands. I leave my colleagues in the organising committee to the business end of putting on the event of the Games, but my job's here to make sure that local businesses and local people get their share. So for local businesses' point of view, getting their share of the procurement opportunities, and also to make sure that local people can get training and get into the jobs that the Games is going to need. And also, we've got the opportunity to put the city and the West Midlands and our people on a really big world stage. So there might be an opportunity for someone who sees us on the television or in person coming to the Games to come back here as a visitor or a tourist, or perhaps inspired to open a Birmingham or even a Coventry headquarters here in future. And I think that really my job's to make sure that the Games is more than sport and tickets. But you asked an interesting question, Henrietta, about how did I come to get this job? Well, I live in Solihull, and I worked at Aston University for 12 years, where I was Director of Employability and Business Partnerships. And then I went on to do a national role for 5 years, which was aimed at two things really. One was making university more accessible for everyday people, and the other was working with businesses to solve supply and demand skills issues in the talent pipeline. And the sort of things I did was I introduced degree apprenticeships. And like many people, I went to London 2012 and was totally blown away really by the volunteers and by the event and the fact that it was in London. And I promised myself that if there was an opportunity to volunteer for another Games in this country, that I would do it. And when I saw that the Commonwealth Games was coming to Birmingham, I went onto the website. It was about, I think, August 2019 to sign up to get the email so that I could become a volunteer when it opened. And when I went into the website, I saw this job advertised, and I was just a bit nosy. I wasn't really looking for a move. And I was reading down, I thought, oh my goodness, this is happening in my city. It's an opportunity to use the Games to make transformational change happen, and we so deserve it. And that's how I've come to be here.
That's fantastic. And, it's already been a pleasure getting to know you and your passion for the region and excitement about what the Games can bring. And I know it's all going to be ramping up more and more over the coming months. Obviously, there's a fantastic legacy strategy that's been produced by the Games. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that? What those key pillars are, those key areas. Like you mentioned, sport is a fantastic element of the Games and encouraging uptake of sport, but it's much bigger, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about that legacy strategy and those key priority areas.
So I think the foundation for the legacy plan is this Games for Everyone vision. I think when I've looked at evaluation reports from Games in the past, I'm not sure all the benefits from those Games have been felt by local people. I think there is a danger that contracts go to the usual suspects, jobs go to the usual suspects. I think this Games has definitely challenged itself to be a lot more inclusive and set itself some goals to proactively ensure that local people feel included, that they have really fair opportunities to get those benefits, but also that we lower barriers for people to join in with whether we're doing cultural festival, whether it's getting business opportunities, or whether it's a volunteering programme. And that's the ethos that runs through all of the legacy programme. And there are some stated pillars. I mean, they're sensible things. They're things like bringing people together, improving health and well-being, helping the region to grow and succeed, and putting us on the global stage. But the sort of cross-cutting one there is generally, how can we use the games to be a catalyst for change? Mm-hmm. And the way that that is happening in practice is the games is bringing forward investment that was planned for much further in the future in things like housing at Perry Bar, and our travel infrastructure with stations and the Sprint bus service will serve us as a local community for hopefully decades to come. But I think that it's bigger than that. I think in this post-pandemic world, the Games is a really good reason for central government to look at the West Midlands as the perfect place for levelling up to take off, and also to help us all recover economically from the last couple of disastrous years. And to that end, the Legacy programme, being more than sport and tickets, covers 10 really big projects. They range from jobs and skills, business and tourism, a huge 6-month cultural festival, and a learning programme for 1 million young people to take part in and feel part of the Games. And I think one of the things that I come across when I talk to local businesses and local people is that I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding that the organising committee is going to be delivering this transformational legacy for the region. But the organising committee is just one partner, and they have the challenge that they'll dissolve after the Games. So it's absolutely critical that we have institutional buy-in from the combined authority and the mayor, from Birmingham City Council and the leader of the council, and national government as well, to help us realise the full potential of the Games over the long term. And I can explain that in a sort of how those partners are helping. For example, Birmingham City Council have invested a lot into the Perry Bar scheme. But more than that, they're also investing £6 million into ward funding that will enable communities to celebrate the Games in the way they want to. And there's also this small grants competition for community arts and cultural projects in Birmingham. And all these things are aimed at bringing people together and improving cultural and community cohesion. The West Midlands Combined Authority, obviously busy with the transport work and the sustainability work, but also particularly on jobs and skills, they're partnering with the organising committee to create this Jobs and Skills Academy. They've got a goal for 6,000 local people to be trained and qualified to get a job on the Games. And I know that those jobs are mostly temporary because this is a short-term event, but the goal is for those people to be able to take that experience onto their next job and gain a career. And central government, they're playing a part in different ways. Yes, they're funding the event organisation, putting the event on. But one of their departments, the Department for Digital, Cultural, Media and Sport, is also putting £4 million into local projects to help people all around the West Midlands to improve their health and well-being. And I think this comes as a really important thing after the pandemic. We know that the Games can be a helpful catalyst to encourage people to become more active, but we're also looking at how we can combat isolation post-pandemic, how we can help people with their mental health and bring people together again after such a difficult couple of years. I hope that explains the sort of the scale of this programme and the fact that it is so much more than sport and tickets.
It absolutely does. And, like you say, the organising committee, their role at heart is to deliver that 11 days of absolutely cracking world-class sport. It's everyone around us getting involved, all the different stakeholders, even right down to individual businesses, looking at it as that opportunity to see the Games as a catalyst, get stuck in and use it to drive engagement and opportunities. Speaking of which, how would you recommend that businesses get involved? You know, we hear from businesses who are interested in everything from procurement to actually more on the CSR side, how they could get involved in supporting that positive legacy from the Games.
I think there's a number of ways, and these will move and new opportunities will come up over the next year. So I'd be really keen to stay in touch with you and keep the pipeline of information going so that people know what they can get involved with next. But for example, on the procurement side, the next contracts to be awarded are going to be catering, waste and laundry. But we've had some brilliant success with trying to get local businesses to become suppliers of the Games. I don't know if people saw recently that our uniform supplier has been announced, and it's a Coles Hill company that is called Incorporate Wear. We also did some training events last year where we worked with the GBS LEP, and I think yourselves, Henrietta, on the ICLP programme. We were trying to identify Black and ethnic minority business owners from small organisations who might benefit for some training on how to go about a public procurement application. And I'm chuffed to bits to say that one of the graduates of that programme has been successful in getting a contract, and it's Tarin 360, which is a Perry Bar company and is a really high-tech company, which probably showcases what Birmingham is about that people don't really know. So that's sort of the procurement side, but we're also recruiting at the organising committee. So, you know, you could definitely, across your networks, help us to fill our team. For example, some of the opportunities that we're recruiting for right now, the communications team is looking for an assistant videographer and a graphic designer, or our schools and youth projects team, they're recruiting, as is our Queen's Baton Relay team. We're looking for people like a route planner and a programme manager. So, you know, hopefully your networks could share some of those opportunities. On the community engagement side, the roadshows are going around the West Midlands at the moment. They're in full swing. On Saturday, there was a big day of sport in Coventry City Centre, and we also held a brilliant roadshow in Newtown on Sunday. And for anyone that did come down last Wednesday to Centenary Square in Birmingham, it was full of kids, full of families having a go at the different Commonwealth sports. And for people who are at a loose end on Sunday, on the 8th, we're at Ward End Park between 12 and 5 p.m. in Washwood Heath. The last thing I'd say is, you know, we've all, the amount of people that have said to me that they've half done their volunteering application is staggering. So we've actually got a deadline for that now. That's going to be the last call for any volunteering applications is 7 p.m. on the 17th of August. So if you're halfway through, it's definitely time to finish it off. And we'll be holding our first selection centres for volunteering for our Commonwealth Collective. That's the name of the workforce. And that'll be taking place in September at the Birmingham Library.
Fantastic. So coming up fast, that deadline. And I have heard that there's been a fantastic number of applications for volunteers. And I do think it's brilliant. As you say, you know, the Games is recruiting both in terms of workforce and volunteers. And the great thing for the region is it's bringing people in, training people, and then after the Games, released back into the wild, as it were, for employers to be able to recruit into their own workforces, these incredible skilled people who have worked on.
I think that's a really good point, because there is some research out there that says if you've got a Games on your CV, you're almost 3 times more likely to be selected as the candidate if you go through a selection process. I really don't know how or why the psychology of that works, but what I do know as somebody sitting on this side of the interview desk is that's the thing I'd want somebody to tell me all about in an interview. It's the thing that might stand out on an application form. So perhaps there is some magic in it somewhere.
Fantastic. And for individual businesses who are thinking, on more of the sort of charity side, how they can help local organisations, I know there's United by 2022, which is a fantastic initiative that the Games are running to support different charitable organisations on achieving different objectives. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And, will there be opportunities, perhaps more detail to come, for businesses to get involved in supporting this sort of activity in future?
Yeah, there's the United by Birmingham 2022 is our community brand. And if you're a not-for-profit organisation, or you've got a not-for-profit project, what you can do is apply to the United by 2020 Birmingham 2022 partner programme. And if you're accepted, you get some branding rights, which you can put on your website and use in potentially funding applications or in your social media. So you can feel part of the buzz that's going on and use the kind of the fairy dust of the Games in whatever way suits your organisation. So the United by partners, we've got, we just had a new batch of applications this week actually, but before that batch, there are around 80 organisations already, and that programme will close for new applications towards the end of this year. So everybody who wants to feel part of that needs to think about getting their application in. There is also a charity that we're setting up that local businesses and their employees could potentially take to heart and use it as potentially their charity of the year next year. The sort of thing that we're aiming to do with that charity is, we know that around 2 million children a year learn to swim through the national curriculum in schools, and with the pandemic there's been 2 lost years of swimming lessons. And in the West Midlands alone, we know that 250,000 children a year go through the national curriculum swim programme to get their 25-metre badge. Now, not only will we have 2 school years of kids who might not catch up with their swimming lessons, and that could be, a life skill that they don't have the means to stay fit in future and swim. But I don't know if people have seen the tragic cold water deaths that have been all over the news recently. Well, the fire service have contacted us, as they're one of the Games partners, to say they would really like to promote swimming as a water safety skill. So the charity, what it will do is, it will not only hopefully help low-income families catch up with their swimming lessons, but also it's highlighted that there are a number of other barriers to why children don't learn to swim. One of those is that if your family doesn't swim, they're not likely to take you to a pool. And sometimes the lack of swimming coaches that look like the communities that don't often swim is a barrier that people don't feel comfortable. So we'd also like to start bringing forward a whole new generation of swim coaches from BAME communities in the West Midlands, and start championing swimming. So coming soon, we will be coming out with a call out to West Midlands businesses to say, is there any way you think you might be able to help us build our community pot? And then after the Games, the United by 2022 charity will be distributing that for the good of local people and local organisations.
That's fantastic. And, watch this space, everyone watching. There will be more info to come. But as you say, swimming is such a core skill, life-saving skill, and also another example of the way the Games can help bounce back after the pandemic and address some of what we've seen over the last sort of 18 months we're coming up to now. So really fantastic thoughts. Look forward to hearing more. So I wonder if you want to leave us with any key messages of what's coming up, things to watch out for over the coming months. I know there's a few milestones along the way. I think you already might have mentioned one, the Queen's Baton relay. Are there any key moments that you'd recommend we all keep an eye out for?
I think there'll be a moving feast. So we've got, I think after a year of so much uncertainty, it's a blessing for us here in the region that the Games looks like it's definitely happening. So at last, something we can plan for. And the opportunities are now starting to unfold all around us. For example, on the business and tourism programme, Visit Britain are getting into gear with how they're going to be telling visitors to the city and the region about all the things on offer that they could visit as visitors attractions. They'll also be rolling out some training to local businesses who are in the vicinity of some of the venues, so that their staff can be up to date with some of the kind of signpost visitors to some of the stuff that's happening. And I think there's also plans for these digital signage boards to be in place around the venues, which will give visitors, you know, a helping hand to show them not only how to get to and from venues, but also, you know, where they might like to eat and drink on the way to and from their event experience. We've got the volunteering selection, which is going to happen, and then we'll have this whole thousands of crew of this Commonwealth collective that will be hopefully lining our streets and waving foam fingers in the run-up to each of the events. We've got those final procurement contracts that will still be going ahead. And also, we know that Perry is going to be out and about in our schools and coming to public places. And I think I have totally fangirled over Perry. He came around the office the other day, and there was all this squealing and people wanting to take selfies, and he's just got this universal appeal that is a wonderful thing to see. So I also think that I was asked last Wednesday whether or not the way the Olympics in Tokyo is unfolding has helped or hindered our Commonwealth Games kind of like image. And I think the run-up perhaps to the Olympics has been, for me, a bit disappointing with how the International Olympic Committee and have, you know, responded to the concerns of local residents in Tokyo and in Japan. That was very disconcerting for me, and I was wondering whether people might turn against these big multi-sport events as a result. But gosh, since the sport has started, and seeing how well GB are doing, and seeing how many Birmingham athletes are medaling and coming to the attention of the media, it's only a short year to the Games. So these people who are our national heroes, we're going to be able to see them in the flesh, and we're going to be able to see them in Birmingham. So I think that excitement is only just going to build, and it's going to be such a magnificent stage for our city, our region, and all our people.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who's missed being able to see live sport, you're not only going to be able to get a chance to see live sport, but world-class live sport just in our own backyard here in Birmingham. So it's absolutely fantastic. If anyone listening was wondering who on earth Perry is, where have you been? He's a Commonwealth Games mascot. Really lovely design, obviously a bull for Birmingham, but beautiful design, and really a nice backstory as well, with involving young people in the design of the mascot as well. And I believe there's also some merchandise available for any Perry fans out there who are looking to get their hands on some Games merch.
Do you know, Henrietta, one of my biggest disappointments is the little plushy Perry the mascot bull toys. They are still not quite arrived on the container yet. So everybody is dying to get their hands on these, because the little shop in the Centenary Square event on Wednesday, they said that they were just bombarded with people asking for Perry the mascot plushies.
Oh, fantastic. They're not stuck on the evergreen, are they?
I really hope not.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Nicola. You've mentioned a lot of different organisations who are involved in different aspects of the Games and opportunities for businesses to get involved. Well, I have good news. The Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, we've released a business hub for businesses looking to navigate their way around the Games, with lots of information and signposting to all the different partners, all of the opportunities, everything from procurement, whether it's host city or organising committee, through to the international trade elements, business and tourism programme, the different programmes can be delivered by the Department for International Trade on Commonwealth opportunities, right the way through to that the Jobs and Skills Academy that you mentioned, Nicola, and the opportunities for training for local residents associated with the Games, led by the West Midlands Combined Authority. So lots of different bits and bobs out there for businesses to get involved in, and we've tried to put it all together in one place to make it nice and easy for businesses to navigate. So do check that out at www.greaterbirminghamchambers.com. Fantastic. Nicola, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all that information, and look forward to continuing to catch up with you in the run up to the Games as more and more goes live and this becomes even more of an exciting reality.
Thank you for having me, and if there are any questions that people have, I'm very accessible. I'm on nicola.turner@birmingham2022.com.